Hello and welcome back to the Odd Shopper YouTube channel. I'm Isaiah. I'm here to break down this weekend's action at the Chicago Street Course, the Grant Park 220. So we are now at a streak of two outrights in a row after our win on Martin Truex Jr. at 31-1 at Sonoma and Ross Chastain last weekend at 11-1. We even hit Brad Keselowski to score a top 10 finish at 3-2 last weekend at Nashville. I'm coming to you from Nashville, so it was fun to have that race happen here. But this weekend, we're up north in Chicago. So I'm going to give you a race preview. I'm going to go through how you can get your name on Zane Smith's truck. We'll go into the picks. We'll talk a little bit about insider access. We have a whole bunch to get to, so let's get started. This is the Grant Park 220 run on the streets of Chicago. So we've actually never seen a NASCAR Cup Series street race. So this is the first one ever. Further, we've also never seen a race on this specific Chicago street course layout unless you are counting various iRacing events that have been held here, which we are not counting because those are not real. So we've got the first ever Cup Series street race and the first ever race of any kind at the Chicago street course this weekend. The Chicago street course is a tight, narrow 2.2-mile track with count them, 90-degree corners. So those are pretty hard to handle. There are also three if you ignore turn 3, straightaways that are 0.35 miles or longer. That isn't quite as long as the longest straightaway at Circuit of the Americas, but it's comparable, which means that we're going to lean a little bit on COTA, of course, and Sonoma, the other road course, and another track that might be surprising as our comparators. So the other thing to know here is that the combination of those long straightaways and those tight corners means that there is going to be a lot of pressure on drivers' brakes, which could cause brake failures. That means that Gateway is a good comparator. Gateway had a lot of brake failures as well because it has long straightaways and tight corners that don't have a lot of banking. We saw 4 brake failures at Gateway, most notably Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace, both of whom drive for 23XI Racing, or both of which that's an important note because if 23XI Racing continues to struggle with brakes this weekend, then Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace are must fades. They are notably not on my betting card for that reason. Before we get into the picks, let me talk a little bit about Tipico Sportsbook. Have you ever wanted your name on a Craftsman Truck Series truck? Well, you can't get it on the name rail, but you can get it on the side. If you deposit at least $38 at Tipico Sportsbook, you'll get your name on Zane Smith's truck and you'll get $150 in bet credits. Note that bet credits are not withdrawable. Call 1-800-GAMBLER if you have a problem. Zane Smith will pilot the number 38 Tipico Ford at Mid-Ohio in July. That's coming up not this weekend, but next. So act fast because, number one, there's not a whole lot of time left before the race, and I'm pretty sure they cut the promotion off a week in advance to get the wrap done. And number 2, only the first 300 depositors get to take advantage of this promotion. Another cool note about this promotion is that the top 5 depositors in deposit size will get VIP passes to a Truck Series event of their choice. So not just this Mid-Ohio event if you do not live in Ohio or you cannot get out there in a couple of weekends. No need to worry. You can still cash in on VIP passes at another Craftsman Truck Series event. Cool. Let me pull up the odds board so we can get into the picks. Great. So our first pick, I see the number is still there, which is great because this number is moving all week. We're going to hit on William Byron. So if you're an Odd Shopper Insider Access, which again, I will talk about later, that is the only way to get access to my full NASCAR betting cards. You got this at 16-1. It's trading at 15-1 now at Tipico, but the book we got it at 16-1 at DraftKings and FanDuel have dropped the number to 11-1. So something tells you that 15-1 will not be around for much longer. So why are we targeting Byron this week? Well, number one, he started on the pole at Circuit of the Americas and then led 28 laps. So we know that Byron has speed at road courses. He's shown us that this year. Number 2, he is one of the most experienced simulator drivers in the sport. Instead of coming up through short track racing, Byron came up at his computer racing on simulators. So we are at a track where drivers have only been able to race at on simulator because they can't shut the streets of Chicago down every weekend just to let NASCAR drivers practice on the tight corners of Chicago. So that means that Byron may have a leg up in as much as being able to translate simulator performance to on-track performance goes. He is certainly one of the better drivers. Number 3, if you look at the odds board, you'll notice that Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson are pretty high up. So there's a lot of market confidence in the Hendrick Motorsports cars at road course tracks, and I think it's fair. They've shown a lot of speed at these venues, even though they haven't won at one recently. So yeah, give me William Byron 15-1. That number is going to go away before qualifying, in my opinion. It probably will be gone after qualifying too, because I think he'll qualify pretty well. So Byron is one of our picks for this weekend. Let's get into the next pick. And unlike the Byron play, the odds have actually moved against me here. I bought Joey Logano when he was at 28-1 at DraftKings. That number briefly spiked to 35-1 before settling in at 30-1 across the market. I still think there's a ton of value there, even though the line has moved against me. I kind of just don't care. Logano finds ways to win at places we haven't been to before. He was the first Cup Series winner at Bristol Dirt. He was the first Cup Series winner at the Coliseum. And he was the first Cup Series winner at Gateway. So he's been winning these new venues lately. And at least Gateway and kind of the Coliseum are comparable here because those are tracks that are not easy to pass at, that feature tight corners by virtue of how small they are. So that's one note with Logano. Another is that he ran well at the comparator tracks this season. He struggled at COTA. He didn't run great at Sonoma or at Gateway because he didn't lead any laps, but he still finished P3 in both events with, I think, a driver rating of 98.5 or better in both events. So that's not a great dominant performance, but it's very good. So he should be in the mix to win this thing at the end. Even if he doesn't have the best car, he should still be up there. Further, Logano got a top 10 in the NASCAR event here in 2021. So although I don't know how great he is at running a tracks in a simulator and then adapting that to actual on-track performance, he didn't do terribly at the Chicago Street Course, and the only kind of quasi-comparator we have. So decent play here. I think you can get him to get a top 10 in the plus money as well. Wouldn't be the worst bet to add to your card. Before we get into the last pick, which will not be an outright, let me talk about OddsShopper Insider Access. That is the only way you can gain access to my full NASCAR betting cards. We have another driver on the outright markets, and I think the number is still close to where I bought it. So you could hypothetically sign up for Insider Access to get the third outright right now. But you get picks in real time, like live bets. You get my full NASCAR betting card. You get access to my NFL and recently MLS betting models. There's a ton of content that you get in there, and you also get to come in and engage with us. It's a blast. You can also get your first week of access for 50% off with code ISInsider. That is code ISInsider. And after that, it's just $19.95. So what I recommend you do is you hop in this Discord, you tail our bets, and you use the money that you make from our bets to pay for the Discord itself and then pocket the rest. It's a lot of fun. You get to interact with us. You get to come hang out. Strongly recommend it. Now let's talk about our last pick for this weekend. It's going to be Ryan Blaney. And again, I said it wasn't an outright. We're not taking Blaney to win. Instead, we are taking Blaney to get a top 10 at 3-2. We just cashed another 3-2 top 10 bet last weekend, so I'm looking to make it 2 in a row after we hit on Brad Keselowski. Well, I don't think that Blaney at 3-2 is as broken as Keselowski was at 3-2 at Nashville. This line is still pretty inefficient. Blaney has been cold at road courses lately, but he started last season with a top 10 at COTA and a top 10 at Sonoma, so he can run well at road courses in the next-gen car. That's not the problem. Next, we know that it's not a Team Penske issue, and I'm not biased because I have a Team Penske banner back there. Trust me on this. Austin Cindric got a top 10 at COTA, and Joey Logano got a P3 at Sonoma. So Team Penske is decent enough at road courses to get top 10 finishes. So why can't Blaney be the next guy who does it? 2 more points. One is that he finished P6 at Gateway, so brake management isn't an issue. I mean, Logano didn't win the event this year, but I think Logano finished P3 is what I said. So yeah, Team Penske, brake management, not an issue. Their brakes didn't explode unlike 23XI Racing. Further, Blaney has scored a top 10 finish in 9 of the 17 points paying races run so far this year, which is a win rate of 53%. If you convert the odds over from the 3-2, you know that that is actually 40%. So we are getting a deal relative to Blaney's raw hit rate now. That's probably because he hasn't been super great at road courses and other drivers have been better. I don't care. 3-2 is too long for Blaney to get a top 10 this weekend, especially at an event that no one has any experience at, and especially because Blaney won the Charlotte Roval race in, I forget what year that was now. I'm getting old. But we've seen him win the first event at a road course before, and that was, he did that by keeping his car clean and staying up at the front at the end. He didn't have a dominant car that day. He was running third on the last lap going into the last corner. And then Martin Truex Jr. and Jimmy Johnson took each other out. But he still won the race. So he gets that, and he got a top 10 in the process. So that's why we're going to trust Blaney this weekend. All right, let me pull this odds board out of here so we can recap our picks. First, Byron, 15-1. Second, Logano, 30-1. You can find those odds at Tipico right now. You can also find Logano 30-1 at DraftKings. We're also going to back Blaney to get a top 10 at 3-2 at BetMGM. I think that is only plus 130 at FanDuel. So it's not a ton of edge relative to the market, but it is some. And you're getting the best number over there. All right, that's going to do it for this week's video. As always, like and subscribe if you found this content useful, and especially if I make you some money, as I've been doing lately. It's been a pleasure. I'll see you next weekend. And as always, let's make some more money.